Okay, well,
Yep.
welcome everyone to PLT Canada's Job Seeker panel. And we have a really great panel for you today of forest sector leaders who are going to share with you their stories. I'm going to introduce them before I turn it over to our first speaker. But if you've never participated in a PLT Canada event, welcome. And if you know us already, welcome back. We're happy that you took some time with us on a Thursday and are with us. Obviously, before I start, have to do a territorial acknowledgement. PLT Canada's office is in Ottawa on the unceded territory of the Algonquin. And me, I'm dialing in from Timmins, Ontario, which is in Treaty 9, and I am in the Matagami First Nation territory. Just a couple of things. We do have some live translation available, so I'll be taking you through that in the next slide. You're welcome to have your camera on or off, especially maybe at the end when we have our Q&A and our group discussion. We'd love to see you if you're comfortable with that. Please do use the mute function throughout the session, but do not hesitate to use the chat. We'd love to hear from you. And so if you have a question as one of the speakers is sharing their presentations, don't hesitate to put it in the chat and we'll get to it at the end. Let us know your comments. Let us know, if you have any reactions or any experiences or anything you want to share. We definitely want to hear from you today and make sure this is valuable. And again, don't hesitate to put your name, your language preference, or any other information you want to share with us today. Pour ceux d'entre vous qui sont avec nous aujourd'hui, qui parlent le français, on est capable de vous aider avec l'interprétation. Voici les instructions. Et si vous avez besoin d'aide, faites juste nous chatter là, dans le chat, puis mes collègues pourront vous aider. Thanks for your patience while I talk about the instructions to access the French information. All right. So Project Learning Tree Canada really takes a lifetime of learning approach, which is really all about environmental education, forest literacy, and career pathways. And so you are here today as part of our Career Pathways program, which is all about the programming that PLT Canada offers to support you in building different career pathways and exposing yourselves to different jobs in the forest and conservation sector. And also we've got a number of amazing programs that I'll take you through just to give you a taste. Our flagship Career Pathways program at PLT Canada is our Green Jobs program. It's a wage match, and we have been doing this since 2018. And this is an old stat because now we're well over 8,100 jobs placed, thanks to 440 employers. And of course, for us, it's very important to make sure that we achieve 50% women participation in all of our program and also 15% participation by Indigenous youth in our program. And I'm happy to say that in 2024, we're at 20% participation by Indigenous youth. We have a number of programs. And so if you're not familiar with us, I would really encourage you to check out our website, get to know the webinars or the resources that are available. We have a guide to green jobs, which is a resource that shows you different Indigenous professionals from across the country in different forestry careers. If you can see it, you can be it. And so, whether it's a resource, a webinar, a live event, our Green Jobs program. We also have a mentorship program, and my colleague Nick Weeks, who manages the program, is here with us today. We are in our 12th cohort, 13th cohort, and it's a binational cohort now, a great program. And so if you're interested in signing up as a mentee in the next program, check in with us, go on our website, and we would love to have you participate. We have four, including me. We have three great panelists with us today. Louise is going to go first, and then you're going to hear from Jerry and then Temi. Louise is the registration manager for the Ontario Professional Foresters Association. Jerry is VP Talent with HLC Talent, and I do encourage you to follow him on social media because he is a recruiter. So he's searching the web for people and matching people with jobs. So we'll have lots to learn from Jerry. And Temi Tope Ojo, Dr. Temi Tope Ojo, is a supervisor with the OMNRF, Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources, based out of Thunder Bay, Ontario. So again, lots of good experience that we'll hear from Temi when it comes to working for ministry. So let's get into it. I'm going to turn it over to Louise, who's going to kick it off, and then Jerry's going to go, and then Temi, and then we'll have a chance to have a Q&A with the audience right after.
Great. Share my screen. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that. Yep,
Looks good.
nodding. That's great. Okay, so hi everybody, my name's Louise Simpson. First of all, I want to do a land acknowledgement. I'm joining you today from North Bay, Ontario, which is situated in traditional Anishinaabeg territory on lands occupied by the peoples of Nipissing and Doki's First Nations, whose Aboriginal and treaty rights are recognized by the Robinson-Huron Treaty of 1850 and affirmed by Section 35 of the Constitution Act of Canada, 1982. So I'm going to give you a little bit about me. I'm not going to wax lyrical about it, but I'm from England originally. I did a Bachelor's of Science in Geography from London, but I did my thesis research in Ontario, which was a little unusual. So when I was 10 years old, my parents took me on vacation in the Rockies for a month, traveling around in a camper van, and I fell in love and decided, okay, that's it. I'm going to emigrate to Canada. Fast forward, I'm at university. I'm telling everybody that I'm going to do my thesis research in Canada. It gets to the point to actually do it. And my supervisor's advice was to bring up Google Earth on his computer, zoom in on Canada, look at some areas that looked forested and say, that looks like it's been logged, you could try there. That was the extent of his help. So I turned to my ecology professor, who was much more helpful, who suggested that I reach out to educational institutions in Canada and ask if they had any projects that I could kind of tag along with to do my research instead of trying to do everything from scratch. I ended up being connected with some great people at OFRI and at Lakehead University, and traveling out to do my thesis research, looking at the impacts of different silvicultural treatments on biodiversity in Mattawa and Timmins. And on that photo on the right there, you can see a very much younger me and my long-suffering father acting as my research assistant, who also funded the entire trip. So grateful for that. I stayed in touch with my those people that helped me, gave me that opportunity, both at Lakehead and from OFRI, and ended up moving to Thunder Bay in 2009 on a student visa to kind of continue the research that I was already doing. So by making that connection, by reaching out to those institutions, cold calling them, I found one person who was very passionate about helping people, and he really kind of took me under his wing. He encouraged me to apply to Lakehead and said he would continue to supervise me. And, you can keep working on the project. We want you to keep working. So that was really exciting. I also got accepted to UBC, so it was a toss-up of Vancouver or Thunder Bay, but I'd never been to Thunder Bay, and I'd been to Vancouver plenty of times. So trying something new seemed a little more exciting. In Thunder Bay, I did my Master's of Science in Forestry at Lakehead. I also kind of got my feet wet a little bit doing some field assistant work for the university. And I worked retail part-time to help pay the bills. So this is all just to illustrate that my career path has been all over the map, with, things I'm proud of and things that, I just did to get by. And I think that that's a pretty common story and nothing that you should be ashamed of. Especially as an international student coming in, it can be hard to get your foot in that door. So I'm sure we'll all talk about that a lot. My first forestry job was as a data analyst for the Great Lakes Forestry Center, which was an awesome place to work. Everybody was really supportive. Again, I got that through connections, through my supervisor who knew the guys that worked there, said, hey, I've got somebody who's really passionate about this. She'd be good. And they took a chance on me. And I moved from Thunder Bay to Sault Ste. Marie just for a 5-month contract. And then I headed back to Thunder Bay. In between that, I ended up working a variety of management jobs at places that were nothing to do with forestry, a dog kennel, a Valley Village, all kinds of different places. And I volunteered at forestry events and at different local nature organizations to network and try and get to know people and get my foot in the door. And it was disheartening at times. I'm working retail with a master's degree. I want to be working in my field, but really forcing myself to get out there, get out of my comfort zone, meet new people, and put my time in volunteering. That worked. I made great connections as well as great friends. And I learned about the Ontario Professional Foresters Association through doing that. I met the executive director, Fred Pinto, and he ended up informing me. We worked together on some other volunteering opportunities, and he informed me about the job opening. So I was able to apply for that. So again, that's where I am now. I've been here since 2018. I am very passionate about the organization. I've had a lot of opportunity to grow. So really, my key message is here. I'm now a Canadian citizen as well, although that's nothing to do with the OPFA. But key things that I learned along the way of my own journey is you got to put yourself out there and get out of your comfort zone. I'm quite introverted naturally. I had to really force myself to learn to network and to get out there. It can be disheartening at times, but you have to make yourself do it. Make connections, because they can really lead to more opportunities down the road. And I think this is a key one. If you're good to work with and you put in effort that people can see, then sometimes people will be willing to take a chance on you, even if you don't tick every single box on that job description, which, sometimes you look at it and you feel disheartened because you're like, oh, I don't meet all of these things. Maybe I shouldn't apply. That's not the case. Go for it. Just put yourself out there, put in the effort, and people really recognize that. A lot of skills are transferable, even if it's not specifically forestry related. Even if you have skills, for example, in my case, in management, those can be transferable as well. Professional development, keep pushing yourself to learn. Don't stagnate. Keep learning new skills and building on that resume. And don't give up and settle. So even if you're getting disheartened, don't give up. Just keep plodding forwards, keep putting yourself out there and pursue your interests. That's my and I'm still working on it. I'm still working on my career as we go along. I'm not done yet. So now I'm going to talk a bit more of a professional capacity as my role as registration manager for the OPFA about establishing a career in professional forestry. So why might you want to choose a career in forestry? You probably already know this, but just in case, there are diverse career paths which blend nature and science and management and all kinds of different things. You can make a real positive impact on the environment. And there's lots of opportunities to work outdoors or indoors, depending on what you're into, and in tight-knit forest communities. Forestry 101. So professional foresters provide a really wide range of services to manage and sustain forests. There can be this public misconception that foresters are just out there cutting trees down, and some people think that they replant them. There's a lot more to it than that. So I've listed a whole bunch of potential workplaces and different forest considerations that that professional foresters consider when they're doing things like writing forest management plans. So, fires, insects, and disease, making sure that you're preserving wildlife habitat, climate change, forest carbon, recreation, and of course the landowner objectives, along with the more traditional forest products that people think of. So I'm not going to read through everything there, but the general point of this slide is that there's a really wide variety of jobs in this field. So you're not pigeonholing yourself into the forest industry, which can be a great option for a lot of people, but it's not the right option for everybody. There's a lot to choose from. So in Ontario, professional forestry specifically is regulated in order to serve the public interest. So that's what the OPFA does as the regulatory body. Registered professional foresters, we call RPFs. They're responsible for forest management and protection of forest values. They're highly educated, experienced, and held to the highest professional standards of practice. And they're accountable through an enforceable code of ethics. So to provide professional forestry services in Ontario, you must be licensed by the OPFA, unless you're working under one of the exemptions in the Act or regulation. So for example, if you're working under the supervision of an RPF, if you're working on your own land, if you're working in research, there are exemptions, or under the scope of practice of another occupation or trade that's excluded. So you don't have to be licensed to do any job in forestry, but to work in professional forestry, you do, unless it's covered by those exclusions. So again, I'm not going to go into huge detail on this. You're going to have a copy. You'll be able to go back and look it up if you want to. But the definition of professional forestry is defined in legislation. So it's the provision of services and advice regarding forest operations and the preparation of plans relating to forestry, good forestry practices, and the sustainability of forests. And there's a whole bunch of things listed there. So if you want to work in these areas in Ontario, you should become licensed with the OPFA. And what's the value of becoming licensed? Why would you want to? Because you don't have to work in all jobs. There's value to the public and to the employers, because both can manage that, can trust that you have the required skills and knowledge to do that work, to look after those forests. Also, both can trust that you're held accountable to an enforceable code of ethics and your work. So members of the public, employers, anybody can file a complaint and we investigate it at no cost to the employers or the taxpayers. So it's really giving yourself that higher level of credibility and trust by becoming a regulated professional. That leads into the benefits for you to be part of a regulated profession, build a professional network, gain mentored experience. You gain that professional designation. So obviously you can apply for those jobs that are designated as requiring an RPF. It can also give you a leg up, for positions that aren't designated too, for those employer benefits that I just mentioned. And of course, you can contribute towards professional forestry by volunteering on our committees and working groups, which Christine can definitely speak to. So there's two professional designations that you would work towards, one or the other. There's Associate Registered Professional Forester, which is more kind of a limited license, providing services within a defined scope of practice. The minimum education level for this is a relevant diploma, and you need to be educated in these specific areas, but you don't need to have knowledge in everything related to forestry. The other one is a registered professional forester, which is the full license, which is transferable across provinces. For this, you need sufficient education and experience in all of the entry-level standards, and you have to have a 4-year BSc or equivalent. You can go from associate to full.
Hey, Louise, thanks for this. Maybe because we're at time now, keep some of this if ever there's more time during the Q&A. So maybe I'll invite you to wrap up.
Sure. Okay. I'm just going to briefly say that we have a Shadow a Forester program for student and in-training members, where you can take part in job shadowing opportunities, connect with professional foresters, build your resume, learn about different types of jobs and what might be a good fit for you. There's no fee for that. And in terms of tips, mostly network, make the most of your mentorship opportunities, professional development. Don't wait for job ads. Reach out to organizations and companies that you're interested in with a good CV and tailored cover letter. Follow application specifications, and be willing to relocate if you can. There's tons of great opportunities further north in Ontario to get your foot in the door.
Great. Thanks, Louise. And I know you have more to cover, so hopefully there's some questions. Jerry, what do you have to say about all of this?
Hello. Thanks, Louise. That was great. Hi, everybody. Jerry Gomez here from Montreal. A little bit about myself. I've been in the HR recruiting space for close to 20 years. The ironic part of myself is that the forest products industry is something that I discovered in 2010, 2010, because somebody thought that I could help them on some recruiting mandates. And I had never really touched the industry. I had never really heard much about the industry. And I agreed to take that meeting, and that was probably one of the single best decisions I ever made. This person was a senior vice president within the forest products and explained what the challenges were going to be. And I started off with a 3-month recruiting mandate for this person. It ended up doing an 8-year stint with them and stayed in the industry ever since. I've traveled across the country. I've been to the different operations that a forest products companies could have, but my favorite part has been going into the bush and going up. And I've been into the bush in BC. I've been in the bush in many northern Ontario and some really northern Ontario places, northern Quebec, the Maritimes. And so I've brought my passion for recruiting. And so my tagline is often, I like connecting people with right opportunities. Obviously, companies come to me and come to my company and all the companies that I partner with to hire for, to help them grow their teams and help them have success. So that's kind of my what drives me. And give you an idea, where I've come is I'm in suburbia of Montreal. So I'm about 20 minutes outside of the city of Montreal, not where your typical forest products people come from, which is okay. But on my land here in the suburbs, I have two trees that are both over 100 years old. And I have neighbors that have been trying for the last 10 years to get me to cut this thing down because it's a nuisance for them. And come hell or high water, they will not come down. So I've won this battle, and they've picked the wrong neighbor to cut down 100. One of them's 115 years old. It's not, so ain't coming down. So just to give you an idea, I've fell in love with this industry, and here we are today. So let me just share my screen. I'm not a, hold on. I'm not a Zoom user, as I said, so give me a sec. Whoa, can't get you too far ahead here. And there we go. You guys can see my screen, obviously, right? And let me expand it. So here to talk to you a bit about the landscape and what it looks like. So current hiring trends. And I'm coming to you from my own perspective. I've been at the table with hiring managers. I've been at the table with executives of all the large companies and the forest companies. And I hear a lot of what they talk about and what's on their mind. And the top things that I hear consistently is increased demand for green jobs, the integration of technology. So this is the youth movement, I call it, right? Which tangles into the aging workforce and succession planning. This is what keeps people up at night, by the way. All CEOs and executives, this is what keeps them up at night, as they need to replace. And obviously, diversity and inclusion is top of mind at all times. I can add to this is that there's obviously, you've heard, right? There's skill shortages, but the other part that I could have added is, remote work adaptability. This industry is still, quote unquote, an older industry, but we're getting there, where certain roles are adapting and being more flexible in terms of remote work availability. However, there's a lot of them that you have to be there and you have to show up, and the industry evolution, I think, we're seeing that baton slowly being handed to a youth movement within the industry. Some of the in-job title demands in-demand job titles that I could see, and I've listed them all because I didn't want to leave any out. And there's a bunch of them that you can have here, different titles, and they're in alphabetical order, so nothing's more important than others. But you see, the reason I put this here is that there's a lot of roles that are being recruited for, that are very important to organizations, and that they are looking for, oh, I've got a double there, but they are looking for qualified people for all of these different types of roles. Okay, and I could have kept going. And some roles are different than others. And so before Louise said, well, you know what, go for it if you see a job. Well, I have a rule of 6 on 10. What I mean by that is, if you see a role that you're interested in, and that if you were to group the top 10 things you would need for that, based on the roles and responsibilities in the job description, and you see that you can bring 6 to the table, that is something that you should apply on. You go for it. And the reason I say that is that if ever you're in an interview situation and they say, well, you're missing this, this, and this, 100%, yes. But that's what's going to motivate me, and I call it the scraping and crawling to get number 7 and number 8 and number 9, right? And a lot of hiring managers are looking for that. They're looking for the people who have those 6 things, rather than looking for a perfect 10 on 10, but then bring in things like soft skills, and the ability to work with others and things like that. That'll get you over the top, and then you get into the role. So what's it like for being a job seeker? Could be a little overwhelming, right? So many things out there. How do I go? Where do I look? What do I do? And my main part of today talk is talking about LinkedIn. And usually when I have people in front of me, I ask them, raise their hand, how many people here have social media? And so everybody will put their hands up. And then I'll say, okay, of the people who have social media, keep your hands up if you have a LinkedIn profile and it's completed, and 90% of the hands go down. And so what I say to you is, this is your career. You should be spending time on LinkedIn the same way you spend time on other social media platforms, and I won't nitpick on what they are. And those are great. But if it's about your career, LinkedIn is where you should definitely start. Okay. And I would say start and where there's a lot of action for employment. Okay. Before I tell you is what are the, so these are some of the easy LinkedIn tips I have, but why is it important to have a good LinkedIn profile? Well, this is your business card, so to speak, and or this is even your window dressing. So when you go to a mall, you're walking down, you see a nice window dressing, it appeals to you. You say, okay, because of what I see, I'm going to go into the store and potentially buy something. It's the same thing with recruiters. Your window dressing is what we get to see, is your LinkedIn profile. If we like the LinkedIn profile and we think that it can fill a role, then we're going to go into that store, quote unquote, which is that person's profile, and engage with them. So first impressions matter. You need to be findable, and you'll see I say that a little later. It's okay to add your own personality to your LinkedIn page, but it's a professional page, right? We got to remember that at all times, it's a professional page. And somewhere where you can actually achieve your professional goals through your LinkedIn page by what you do and how you engage with people. So number one is the easy stuff is complete your profile and make sure that your work history and your education and your skills and your certifications are all up to date. Number two is your professional headshot. Don't need to see your picture from when you were in high school. I don't need to see your picture when you were the star gymnast in college. It's a professional headshot. It doesn't have to be taken by a professional person. It just has to look professional. Strong headline. So there's a headline section under there where that's where you can kind of craft a headline that highlights who you are, right? And what the experience and the type of work that you're looking for. Example, I don't know, experienced forestry technician, sustainable forest management, seeking opportunities, something like that. If you're seeking opportunities, or so your headline can be is something that needs to be there, and it's your tagline of who you are and what you're looking for, and that's going to come up. Tell us about your story in your about you section, and that's your kind of your summary. A compelling summary. It tells about your professional story and a little bit about your personal side so that people can get to know who you are as a person, right? And that's your individuality. And follow your industry, companies within your industry, and follow people within your industry that could be at those companies on LinkedIn. So these are the easy tips. This is the things that you can do. And by the way, writing your strong headline, go ahead and use ChatGPT. Nothing wrong with it. Okay, complete your when you're completing your profile and use it, telling you your story about you. Use ChatGPT. Input all the prompts that you need about yourself. Give it a copy of your resume, and it'll give you something. And ask it to give you a compelling story about yourself for LinkedIn, and it'll do it for you. So, but strongly recommended. Okay. Next is kind of my extra LinkedIn tips. I won't call them secret, but LinkedIn works on keywords. So, like I said, on your headline, in the about you, in your work experience, keywords, that's how it's optimized. And so in any searches by recruiters, whenever there any companies looking, or even when a hiring manager goes on LinkedIn to look for, keywords are important. Network with purpose. Don't just send generic things. Why are you networking with people? And if you have something to say, personalized message, not a problem. Send it. Keep it professional and short. Post something or share in your LinkedIn. It could, if you don't want to write something, you don't have to, but you see articles that are in your industry or that are with what you're passionate about, what you've studied. Share them. If you want to add a note, fantastic. LinkedIn groups. This is probably the most underrated thing. If you go into LinkedIn and you go into the group section on LinkedIn, and you enter, for example, forestry, you're going to see a bunch of different groups that are forestry. You enter GIS, you enter silviculture. You will find groups, some with more members, some with less members. Ask to be a part of the groups, ask to be admitted into the groups. People share things in those groups. You can throw comments into what you see in those groups. And the reason you're doing this is somebody somewhere can see you, can engage with you, can and sees that you've put in some comments and you've engaged with the group, this gets you ahead if ever and when you need something in terms of you're looking for jobs. All of this works in your favor. You can set up job alerts on LinkedIn so that if ever there's a job that is relevant to you, you're advised right away. Engage with recruiters like myself or anybody else who is in the forest products or other. Very important. Find them, engage with them, connect with them. They may post something. If you're in their network, they may hit you up before they hit up somebody else, right? Showcase your work. If you've done things at school, if you've done side projects, whatever it is you've done and you want to showcase it, there are sections for that. Showcase it. People look at that. There's a skills section where there's kind of like this LinkedIn skills assessment thing at the bottom of everybody's profile. Relevant competencies, put it in there. GIS, environmental science, project management, right? These types of badges, they improve your credibility, right? And also connect with your alumni, right? Wherever you came from, whatever schools you came, look at people in the alumni, where are they at, and connect with these people, again, with the proper intention of connecting with them with the right messaging that you went to the same school. People like that. And somebody who was in your shoes 8 years ago might be in a hiring position now. And so you being that alumni, that might make them feel warm and fuzzy, right? And bring you in for an interview. Right? These are real stories, right?
Hey, Jerry,
Yeah.
this is really good, but I have to tell you we're at time, so maybe
Yep.
I'll let you wrap up. And I think, you're probably going to get some good questions from the participants to this. So I'll
Yep.
let you wrap up and keep your questions for Jerry on this because this is some good information.
And that's it. That was my last slide here is advice. Be proactive. Soft skills are very important. Strengthen your searchability / findability on LinkedIn because you need to be findable. Tailor your application, like Louise said. Prep for your interviews. Stay flexible. Diverse career paths. And I call bite-sized jobs. Take jobs for 24 months. Have a timeline. Use it for your benefit and be mobile. Move around the country. The more you move, the better opportunities you get. That's the way I've seen it. So thank you very much. And I'll leave the questions for the end.
Great. Thanks so much, Jerry. That was excellent.
Thank you.
And someone who was commenting a lot to your comments was Temi, because he agrees. Temi's a big LinkedIn user. So on that, Temi, why don't you take it over from this point?
Can you have seen my slide?
Not yet.
That is quick.
I know all these Teams users.
How about now?
Yes, excellent.
Good. So I'm going to share my personal journey briefly as an immigrant to Canada, and just a quick information regarding this. When I posted this morning, over 60 people checked my profile in less than an hour. That is the highest I've ever gotten in an hour. And some I had to quickly make a quick phone call, 5-minute phone call, 10-minute phone call, got a minute, because I do not send people away when they ask me questions. I know they needed an answer, that's why they asked me. So jump into this presentation. My name is Dr. Temitope Ojo, and I'm currently a regional supervisor at MNR, Ministry of Natural Resources. A little bit about my background. As you can tell from my look, I was born and raised in Nigeria, and I have over 15 years of experience in leadership, policy formulation, development, and I have worked in several forestry organizations in Nigeria, naming FRAIN, Federal Forestry Research Institute of Nigeria, Ministry of Agriculture, Environment and Natural Resources. I had my bachelor's in forestry and wildlife management, and then my master's in forestry economics and management, and my PhD in forest sciences at Lakehead University. That's a little bit of a background in Nigeria. Now, fast forward. In 2019, I moved to Canada. I was welcomed like that. I was so cold that when I came to Canada, I'm like, okay, where is this place? And when I landed in Thunder Bay, I thought it was a campsite. Okay, I'm like, okay, where is the next destination? They say, oh, you are in your destination already. This is Thunder Bay. Okay, this is gonna be interesting. And then as a normal immigrant, what do? You start looking for jobs. Hey, where can I get a job? Where can I get this to pay my bills? Then you realize the exchange rate in your country is not the same exchange rate as you are looking at it. Reality is different from imagination. And then you see jobs that are $15, $22 an hour. That's where everybody want to troop into. But if you look at the slide, you will not see job that is above $22 an hour because average immigrants will see that I don't think I'm qualified for that kind of a job. Let me stay at $22 an hour. That's where you see the queue. So what happened when I moved to Canada? When I see this trend, I moved to Canada in 2019. And for my PhD, I came as with a study visa as a normal student. And to gather my experience locally, when I see that trend, I work at Lakehead University as a research assistant for 4 years, and then I pick up some casual jobs here and there just to pay the bills. And then I started volunteering for different organizations just to also have networking connections and also improve capacity because this is a new environment for me and I want to thrive. I took up several leadership roles, also to have an international leadership role, different from my local one, the one I had. I was the president of QP local at Lakehead for 2 years. I was voted in for 2 years. Maybe I did a good job. I don't know why they voted me the second time. I was the vice chair of the CIF Northwestern Ontario, and also the vice president, currently the vice president of Thunder Bay Historical Museum Board of Directors. And also for the city of Thunder Bay, I'm also a citizen representative providing policy advice for the city of Thunder Bay regarding anti-racism and equity. So this, I begin to spread my tentacles to be able to understand the terrain, know different people, understand where I am. So I was not focusing on the job, but I was focusing on expanding my territory and also making sure that I have my footing. A little bit of how I got to my current role as a supervisor. When I was ready to apply for a job, very close to the end of my study, I applied for an internship role with the MNR. And then surprisingly, I was reached out to and they say, oh, I think you're a little bit overqualified for the role, but we have another suitable candidate to be going for. Okay, that's fine. And then the second one I applied to was this one, the supervisory role. And then boom, over 100 people applied for the roles. I came out as the one that was selected. Someone took a chance, someone took a bet on me. And then that's where I ended up with the current role that I have. I would say, if you look at my profile back, you will see a lot of leadership role I've been building on when I came here, and those are easily translated into my current role. And in this process, while I was job hunting, I was doing my studies. At the same time, I was trying to get my Canadian citizenship, which I know will give me more grant and more room for more opportunities. So I came in 2019 as a student. You can imagine in the space of 4 years, I moved to the ladder of being a Canadian citizen. And that was a remarkable achievement, I would say. So we will talk a little bit about that in my next slide. So what are the challenges I face? Why capturing these challenges? I'm going to walk you through how I was able to navigate. People usually ask me one question. How much did you bring to Canada when you were coming to Canada? Good news. I'm ready to unveil it today. I came with $800 to Canada. Yeah. I don't know when I'm going to get the next money, but I came with $800 to this country. And there, my first month house rent was $465. And I bought telephone bill and everything. By the time I spent all those money, my first month, I was left with $75. Good. I put $75 in my account. I was scammed for $50. Someone withdrew $50 in my account. I was left with $25. I went to the bank. I was crying. Where is my $50? They said, just $50. I said, you know how much I have? I have 75. I don't know what I'm going to do next. Then I need this money. So someone from the bank just worked their way through. I have my money back in my account. So these are challenges. when I started applying for jobs, I applied for few local jobs. They said they cannot give me the job for some reason best known to them. And I believe it's because I don't have the local experience. I have experience in my country. I was one of the top candidates. I finished with first class in my bachelor's degree. I finished with distinction in my master's. And I was retained for employment when I graduated, but I denied because I said I want to move for a greener pasture. So finding local experience can be so tough when you just came to the country. But you know what? When you volunteer in every capacity you find yourself where you just moved to, even though you don't have a job, try to volunteer, join professional organization. I joined OPFA, that's where I met Christine, and this is where I met different good people. So join professional network. I joined CIF, I've met different people when I came here through that. And I also joined the Thunder Bay Historical Museum Society. The interesting part is student fee is usually free of charge. Join and participate. That's what they need. And then you can grow as you move on and make the right connections. Build friendship. Know what you want, know your career path, and build friendship in that sphere. You can walk up to a company and say, hey, can I know a little bit about your organization? This is my experience. Try to have conversation. Seek mentorship. I was one of the beneficiary of OPFA Shadow a Mentor, Shadow a Forester program they launched. I was one of the beneficiaries because I was privileged to meet remarkable experienced folks that are currently working in the field. And they walked me through my application when I was applying for jobs. They walk me through it, they check, and I make presentations for them. They say, oh, this is where you should check. Don't answer questions like this. This is how you should. So they were able to put me through. Then the second application was bingo, I got the job. When I told them, they were like, wow, how did you do it? I said, well, I followed your tips and tricks. I was not leveraging on what I know before. I was willing to learn and improve myself. So we are still good friends up to now, and they have given me good recommendation. And tips, when they ask me for how much are you going to take, I told my manager, I said, give me a minute. So I quickly text one of my mentors. They are asking me how much they are asking. He said, whatever thing they want to give you, take it. But you know what? Your performance in the next few years will determine. And then it's proven. And I'm happy I made that decision. Request for meeting on LinkedIn. I cannot stress this enough. I can say I have easily set up about 20-25 calls with people on LinkedIn, just a quick call. Hey, this, and I said, give me 5 minutes, I'm going to talk to you. This. Can you send your resume to me? I'm going to have a look at it. And I will check all night. I'm active at night. I will send the person back the resume. So these are things, don't be shy to request for meeting. And if you check my LinkedIn profile, I have a premium account. So I think I get a wider audience and people tend to ask me questions. And so one of the things I would say that was a drawback for me, one of the candidates, one of the people I make connection with was, and I think someone on the call also resonates with that, is that when job seekers want to ask potential hiring manager questions, they don't tend to give a little bit of a gap to listen to what the hiring manager would say. They want to talk about who they have, and it's always very nice for you when you talk about yourself for a few minutes. Try to read the countenance, read the body language of the person you are talking to, and try to give a little space and say, okay, I think this is the right time for me to pause and listen to this individual to speak to me. So you might want to be mindful of that. I know you have a great resume, but you have people that you are at their mercy for the moment. Upskill your certification. Don't be complacent. I have this degree before, I have this certification. Upskill, get more certification. Professional certification. If you are a forester, RPF is important. Tailor your resume to the cover letter. This I cannot stress enough. I reviewed over 200, 300 applications. And then it is easy for me to filter away most of the time, because when you're writing your cover letter and resume, it does not match the job description. So when I want to filter the application, I need to check yes, you have the right qualification, but I want to read how you have demonstrated what it is in the job description. Maybe I'm interested in someone that knows how to communicate. In the job description, must be able to communicate. In your cover letter, I'm expecting, or in my role as maybe research assistant at Lakehead University, I respond to about 200 inquiries in a day. Then I know you are good in communication. Not that I know how to communicate. I need someone that has demonstrated communication. That is what is in the job ad. That's what I want to see in the cover letter. Connect with mentor. Be polite during interview. Be willing to learn. So as a hiring manager, I'm going to be quick on this slide. These are the things I'm looking for. Technical proficiency, that is just a basic, that is just the standard, but I'm looking for soft skills the more. I don't want to hire someone that will come to the team and start making a mess of the team that has been built. I need soft skill. I'm capitalizing on soft skills, interpersonal skills, and attention to detail. And when you're answering interview questions, I'm expecting you to be structured when you're answering questions. So interview, answer the questions and avoid off-topic speaking. And good news, so the people on the call, I'm currently hiring. I am hiring a GIS data tech, and also I'll be hiring for GIS intern and also summer student. So there's a lot of openings here. So if you are interested in joining the public OPS, there's a link there. Feel free to join the OPS career page, and let's work together to shape a sustainable future. I will say thank you. Most of the time, you don't meet all the criteria in the job ad, but you know what? Sometimes I take a bet on someone and say, hey, I'm going to give this person a chance. And they have actually proved me right most of the time. Thank you for listening.
Wow, thanks so much, Timmy. And now we know that you and Jerry are competing for GIS candidates. So definitely a good field to be into. And thank you to our speakers. I think that was quite interesting. Are there any questions from people in the audience? If you wanted to unmute yourself or put anything in the chat or kind of share your experiences. Yes, Melanie, we'd love to hear from you.
Hi, everyone. This is very helpful today. Thank you. I'm naturally nervous to network. It makes me feel very uncomfortable. I always feel like I'm bothering people. So to hear you say that this is a really important and welcomed part of the process gives me a little bit more confidence moving forward. I guess my question is for Jerry. I look at a lot of job postings and see that I match a lot of the qualifications, but not all of them. But I'm the type of person who, if I don't have it, I will learn it. And I want to know how and if I can put that somewhere in my resume or my cover letter. If I can say in my cover letter, I don't know how to do this yet, but I can learn it. Or if that's just something I should leave out altogether.
Yeah, I would leave that out. I would talk about what you do well, who you are, what your strengths are, and I don't know this or I don't know that, but I could learn it. Forget about being specific. But if you talk more about how you're a resourceful person, if you talk about how you are someone who is a fast learner, if you talk about those things, those soft skills, right, that will tell them, okay, well, fine, she has the 6 on 10, but it's missing the rest. But you don't need to talk about that. Yeah, you don't need to tell them what you don't have. Tell them who you are, what you do have, and why they're hiring you, right? And as Temi said before, I think customizing, and I think Louis said it too. We also, customizing your resume to the job. I put in the chat there, don't spam apply. We receive spam apply, right? Like we have an applicant tracking system. Everything comes in, and then we have 4 jobs, and the same person applied to all 4 jobs within 40 seconds, right? Like maybe you are good for one of those, but what is that? What are you telling us, right? Like, so, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, thanks, Melanie. Maria, you had unmuted yourself, so we're looking at you next.
So I guess my question would be for Louise. So she said that we needed like an equivalent for education. And I was wondering if I had a BA of anthropology, for example, would that be considered equivalent, or are there like specific ones that would be, considered?
So we have a whole table, a whole list of different equivalencies. So anthropology, I don't think is one that we've had so far. It's a bachelor's level. So we would look at, do you also have relevant work experience and things like that as well? And what else you're bringing to the table. So we will look at both the education, the formal education you have, and also the relevant experience and how that kind of can add up. So what I would suggest is that if you want to email me your resume individually, then I can, talk to you about your specific situation and let you know whether you meet that equivalency. The other thing to state is even if you didn't meet the equivalency for full membership, the full RPF designation, as long as you, as somebody has a minimum diploma level, then you can work towards associate membership and getting a limited license. Again, if you have some relevant experience to put in there as well. And then as you gain more experience, then you may be able to work up towards that equivalency, or if you choose later on to determine to continue your education. So you may be able to meet that equivalency later on, even if you don't meet it right now.
Okay, perfect. So experience helps essentially.
Yeah, relevant experience helps. And it doesn't have to be paid either. Volunteer experience also helps. Progressive. So if somebody has, years and years worth of tree planting experience, that's great, but it's not, as good as if you have some tree planting experience and then you've worked towards doing progressively more challenging things as well. I'll put my email in the chat in case anybody wants to reach out to me.
And
Thank you.
Thanks, Maria, for asking the question. And we did get another good one from Joe. Maybe before I get into it, just encourage everyone, just as we wrap up, if you wouldn't mind turning your camera on. If you're comfortable, we'd love to see your faces. And I do encourage people to put stuff in the chat because we are going to be running out of time. But Joe's question, and I think, Joe, you are in urban forestry from Ottawa. So good question. Is it fair to say that most opportunities in this sector are in rural or remote areas, save for urban forestry? And the second question is, what would be some suggested micro-credentials to consider to augment current experience level? And so I'll invite other panelists to jump in, especially for part 2 of the questions. But I just wanted to say, you don't have to be in a rural or remote areas. It definitely does help. And if you're trying to stay in a city, your opportunities might be limited. However, I started my career in Toronto, working for the Ministry of Natural Resources in policy. So, if you want to if your dream is to be a chief forester, it's probably not going to happen by staying in Toronto or by staying in Ottawa. But in the future, could GIS technicians be based in Toronto working for a company that's doing work in a bigger footprint across Canada? Probably. If you're interested in policy, if you're interested in research, if you're interested in working for a nonprofit or a trade associations tend to be based in Ottawa or in Toronto. So it just depends on what you're interested in. Some people are just not interested in moving. And so if that's the case, then, maybe your dream isn't going to be to become chief forester, but you could have an amazing job with the Ministry of Natural Resources Canada or in Environment Climate Change Canada in Ottawa. And those are wonderful jobs in the sector working in policy in an urban area. So those are maybe some thoughts. I know, Jerry, you or Tammy, you might have some additional comments.
Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, 90% of what I've recruited in this space has been in remote areas. And so if you want to know a little bit, I can give you, I could peel the onion for you a little bit. Let's talk about what people don't talk about is salaries and things like that. But you'll have access to jobs. There is less competition the further away you move from the city centers for these. Yes. Companies' salaries will be potentially a little bit higher. And the further you go, salaries can get higher. So I mean, one hire that we had was you would have Northern Ontario, you had a salary of X, and If you went to another location, which was even further, they bumped that by 10%. So that was a different salary scale for those people, 10% there. And they also sometimes help you with relocation. They may even help you with temporary housing for, right? So now we're talking this financially, and I'll be short on this, is before I said bite-sized jobs. I know that we want to get there as fast as possible. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And if you want to, look at things like, okay, I'm going to move away. I'm going to go in, north, and I'm going to go middle of nowhere for you, right? Well, tell yourself, I'm going to the middle of nowhere for 24 months. Give yourself that 2-year, 24-month window. Say, okay, setting myself up. I'm going to make some good money. I've got a job. I'm going to go 24 months. That's my end. Use it to your advantage, right? There's nothing wrong with managing your own career, right? So 24 months, you have a start date, end date in your mind. You don't have to tell your employer this, but this is where you are. In 24 months, a lot could happen, right? A lot could happen. And who knows, you might like it in rural parts of Canada. It's really nice. If you're an outdoorsy person, and people are more friendly there than anywhere else in the country.
Tammy, did you want to share some? I know you've been putting a couple things in the chat, but it might be nice to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you. The last 3 people that I hired, surprisingly, they came from the city. And like, what are you guys doing here? They said, well, I've been job hunting for about a year plus now. I'm not lucky, so I just want to give it a try here. And they are very qualified. They are good. And after 6 months, I asked, okay, what's up? Do you want to move back to Toronto or where you came from? They're like, no. If I knew this place existed, I would have been here from day one. So one of them, after 2 years, after 16 months of the employment, he bought a house. He said, I would never have been able to buy this in the big city. Now, he said, after 6 years, when I work, I will consider moving to the big city just to understand civilization and work there and then come back again to retire. So what I would say is entry-level role, just like Gary has said, I will echo what he said. Give yourself 1 year or 2 years. I'm going to go take this job, grow my network, get more experience. If you work with the OPS, with OPS, you can easily see some internal posting. If you are within the system, that you can actually say, okay, there's another opportunity in Toronto or Ottawa where you are. Those opportunities you cannot see if you are an external candidate. So I would say opportunities abound. It's all based on how much are you going to let go for you to be able to grow your career.
Great, excellent, and I couldn't agree more. I'm recognizing that we're at time. And so want to thank our panelists for the time that they took in the presentations, and want to thank all of you for joining us. And then the PLT Canada team is happy to stay on if any of you want to stick around and chat more. But otherwise, really thank you for all of your time. Don't hesitate to reach out to us, and good luck.
So, I mean, I don't know if the person who asked about micro-credentials is still here or if they've gone. But anyway, in terms of ways of getting in, at least for the professional forester side of things, there are accredited programs you can take. There's only 2 in Ontario, but there are others across Canada. Those are more kind of full-time programs, though. In terms of micro-credentials, if you're interested in becoming licensed, the best ones you can take are the OPFA has bridge training modules that are available. And those, we've already assessed the content of them, so we know what areas they cover. So, if you've taken that, then we can say, okay, we know that this person has these skills. Whereas if you've gone away and taken other kind of courses and training, which is absolutely acceptable, you just have to go through another process where you will have to have those kind of evaluated. So it's less certain as to how that will contribute towards your career. So again, I would say, if it's professional forestry that you're interested in working towards and you're looking for ways to kind of build up your educational qualifications towards that with that in mind, again, reach out to us. send us your resume. We can see where you're at, and then we can maybe give you some advice about what the process would be, and perhaps, types of training that you might want to take to help you on your pathway.
If you would like a work experience in the forest and conservation sector, or would like to learn about our mentorship program and career resources, visit pltcanada.org.